Financial leadership is changing. CFOs no longer record history. They make history. This podcast will help you become a better leader, strategic thinker, and digital visionary. Welcome to Secrets of Rockstar CFOs, the ultimate podcast for chief financial officers. Follow along as Jack McCullough engages in exciting chats with accomplished CFOs, learning how they overcame obstacles and positioned their companies for the future. Here's your host, Jack McCullough.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Secrets of Rockstar CFOs. I'm your host, Jack McCullough. You can follow us online at rockstarcfos.com. Before we begin, I want to give a shout out to our two sponsors, Payhawk and Planful, who make this and all of our episodes possible. We have a great guest today, so let's get to it. Rock on. Hello, everybody. Welcome back for another episode of the Secrets of Rockstar CFOs, and this is going to be a great one, I can promise you that. I'm delighted to welcome Navneet Govil. He is the Executive Managing Partner and CFO of SoftBank Investment Advisors. SoftBank Investment Advisors is a global investment managing firm that oversees SoftBank Vision Funds. They focus on large-scale investments in innovative and disruptive technology companies worldwide. Navneet, I've been looking forward to this. Welcome to the Secrets of Rockstar CFOs.
Thank you, Jack. Good to be on your show.
Yeah, great to be here. And I gave 10 words to describe your fund, but there's a whole lot more to that. So do you want to give a little bit of overview on what you're doing? Because there might be two or three people who don't know.
Sure. I didn't know much about SoftBank when I joined SoftBank at the beginning of 2016. So SoftBank was founded by Masayoshi Son. We refer to him as Masa here in 1981 as a distributor of software, and has been leading a number of technology trends over the last 4 decades, starting with the PC revolution, followed by the internet revolution, mobile revolution, and then the AI revolution when I joined in 2016. So fast forward to today, we're now managing 3 funds. As you said, we do growth equity investing, late stage investing in tech companies. We have 3 funds with 470 portfolio companies and over $100 billion in assets under management.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating story, and I'm looking forward to exploring that. But before we get into that, I want to guess a little about your own background. And you grew up in rural Zambia, and I understand the town that you grew up in didn't have an elementary school. And I'm curious what that was like, and I'm sure that still affects your view of the world today.
Yeah. And as you can tell, Jack, I don't look Zambian. I'm of Indian descent. As you said, I was born and raised in Zambia in Africa. And my parents, my dad was running a college for refugees from neighboring countries at the time because some of those countries were not independent. And a lot of expat kids in Zambia, their parents used to send them to the private schools or the international schools. In hindsight, when I look back, my parents sent me to the local public school. And that was just great experience for me. Some of the things that I think I benefited from was, one, really getting an appreciation of my, the fellow students who were there, most of whom were not privileged. They're very underprivileged. So really getting a sense of and appreciating how humility is important. The other thing is we have to, take care of our own school and classroom. For instance, we had to sweep our classrooms. I used to slash the grass in the yard. So that was really great experience for me growing up.
Yeah, that's an absolutely fascinating story. So amazing. And so you came to the United States to go to college, and you studied mechanical engineering, not finance or accounting, like a lot of my guests have done so far, but you studied mechanical engineering at Columbia. And I'm curious, did you just have sort of a scientific bend from an early age?
Yeah, so actually it wasn't mechanical or Columbia. It was actually electrical engineering, but I was, was interested in math and science and kind of had an analytical bent. The other interesting thing is in Zambia, there was only one university. the University of Zambia at the time. And there was one political party which was in power. And so the students were effectively the opposition to the government. And from time to time, when they would protest the government policies, they would go on strike and the university would be shut down, sometimes for 6 months, a year, 2 years. And I figured a 4-year degree could end up taking whatever, 5, 6, 7 years. So I applied abroad. I actually got in to your neck of the woods in Boston. That's where I did my electrical engineering degree.
Oh, okay. Gee, so I got the degree and the school wrong. I hope that's not an indicator of the rest of my my research for this. So my bad. I do apologize for that one. So,
no,
but it is interesting because more and more I've met former engineers who are CFOs, and they're very successful in the role. And, I think part of it is because the modern CFO role is largely a problem solver, right? Rather than, a reporter. Do you think, being an engineer is going to be more and more common as a pathway to becoming a chief financial officer?
I'm not sure. I think I've seen a lot of great CFOs with all kinds of backgrounds. For me, it was kind of a little accidental. When I was in engineering, I did 2 internships at Motorola. First in R&D, and then the next one was in manufacturing, and I loved them both. But I always used to wonder, I was curious to know the big picture. How does a company make money? How does a company decide to allocate resources? How do they know how much to put in R&D, how much to put in marketing? And, how do they make money? So after my internships there, I took my first job in investment banking in project finance. And in those days, project finance used to be paper recycling facilities, power generation plants. And it was all about, how do you take the cash flows from the project or the company and revenues and service the debt that you have and provide a return to the equity holders. So for me, at the start of my career, it was super helpful to understand how to run a business, how to make money, how to do resource allocation. And that's what led to my pivot from engineering to finance. And I stayed in finance since then.
Yeah. And, looking at your background, and geez, hopefully you got this right too, but you've worked with some of, just world-class companies like Pfizer, HP, Sun Microsystem. And I'm curious, working with some very talented people, I'm curious what that experience was like and, who were maybe some of the key mentors that you had along the way as well.
Yeah, I was very lucky. The companies you mentioned, they were at the forefront of growth in those days. Pfizer had come out with drugs like Lipitor, Zoloft, etc. Sun Microsystems during the .com days, they used to call it the dot and .com. But for me, it wasn't me choosing those companies. It just sort of happened that when I was at Pfizer, I had an amazing manager and mentor. There was this lady, Lisa Everett. And, she was in treasury. I had done a bunch of rotations in finance when I was at Pfizer and FP&A, M&A. They sent me overseas to France for a year. And then I was in treasury and I started working for this lady. Just an amazing manager. She had a lot of empathy. I, obviously had some strong analytical skills, but early on in my career, I think it's fair to say could have more EQ skills. And so I really learned that from her. And then when I was at Sun Microsystems, and Sun, in those days, the CEO, Scott McNeely, used to serve on the board of General Electric when Jeff Welch was the CEO there. So he brought a lot of practices to Sun, like Six Sigma, leadership development, etc. There I had a manager, Mick Murray, really an amazing mentor. And what I learned from him was, number one, how to think strategically, how to frame a problem. And he was really good at teaching me how to challenge the status quo. So how to constructively challenge. People, especially early on in their careers, have a tendency to acquiesce and just go with the flow. But he was all about, if you disagree, you have to speak up. And this is how you do it in a constructive manner. So it's received well. So I really benefited from those mentors.
No, that's a fantastic story. And that's one thing I've learned whenever I talk to an elite CFO or a Rockstar CFO, as I should be saying on this podcast, all of them had so many influential mentors along the way. And, it's great. So, but
yeah. And for me, it was so important because I benefited from that here at SoftBank. And now I'm in my 9th year here at SoftBank. trying to make sure that our employees, not just in finance, but the rest of the organization, have those opportunities, because I benefited so much. And, this is my small way of paying it forward.
Yeah, no, that's great. And we'll definitely get into that, because I've seen firsthand how you mentor some great CFOs. But I'm curious, the transition from a more traditional corporate environment to venture capital, how did that come about? And, what was sort of the challenges you had learning, not, it's more than just an entire new industry. It's really an entire different approach to business.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Jack. So, if you look at most asset management firms, whether you're talking about PE firms, venture capital firms, CFOs traditionally come from the big four accounting firms. And that's because there's a lot of emphasis on, LP reporting, limited partner reporting. And a lot of these funds tend to be regulated just like we are. We're regulated by the SEC. We're regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority in the UK. So they have that background. I was hired without that background at all. As started out in engineering and in finance. I didn't have the accounting side, the reporting side at all. And when I joined here, we were actually like a startup. We are funding other startups, but we at SoftBank, it was just a handful of us at the time in 2016, and we were like a startup. And so I had to basically start from scratch. And what I focused on was, okay, what are the deliverables? What do we have to do? What's the reporting that we need to do? And who are our constituencies? And that to me was super important. One was our limited partners. So all the reporting we're doing to them, how are we going to return money to them? What kind of returns do we need to have, thresholds, targets, and how do we show progress against those? The other was our investing teams. How can we support our investing teams in making better investing decisions? And then as our portfolio grew, we started supporting the portfolio companies. So what do we need to do to support our portfolio companies so they can leverage the ecosystem? So it was really, starting from scratch. And, I hired people, a lot of people where I asked people for advice, who should I hire as I build the team, the finance team and the broader team? Some people said hire super senior people. Others said, hey, right now you need to get the work done. Just hire a bunch of individual contributors. And I realized if you hire, just people, individual contributors, they need a lot of handholding. Super senior people, they're not doers. And we were scaling so fast and we had to move at such speed. I ended up hiring people, kind of mid-level people who could roll up their sleeves, were hands-on, but at the same time, as we scaled and grew, they could take on more leadership positions. In fact, today, most of my direct reports are the same people I hired 8 years ago that have grown into those leadership roles.
Yeah, and I've met a few of them, and you've built a fantastic team. And I definitely want to explore your philosophy on building a team in a moment. But I understand you relatively recently joined the investment committee at SoftBank. That has to be an exciting development for you, but challenging and very, very rewarding, I would think. So can you tell us a little about that, what your role is and, how you make the best decisions?
Yeah. So my role here, as you know, is CFO, leading the finance function. In addition, leading our other functional teams. We call it the functional leadership team. And then, as you mentioned, the investment committee. So on the investment committee, now that, we started our first fund in 2017, in May of 2017, and, we've deployed over $100 billion over the last 7 years or so. So there are a lot of learnings that we have now incorporated as we make investment decisions. But we are now, uniquely focused on looking at companies that are leveraging AI-led companies, artificial intelligence. As I mentioned, our founder felt in 2016 that we were entering the AI revolution. So that's super important. The second thing is the companies need to have positive unit economics. The third thing is really have to have a product market fit. You'll remember this, Jack, in the, I think, .com days, there used to be a company called Webvan, which basically did grocery deliveries and all. And today you have the same concept with Instacart. And the thing is, Webvan was a good concept, but it was too early for the time. So product market fit is super important. And then lastly, a track record of execution by the founders and the management team. So those are the four things that we focus on when making our investment decisions.
Yeah, that's very sound. Yeah, I remember the .com era. It was a very crazy time. With hindsight, we thought that would be once in a lifetime, but we've had a few bubbles like that. No, maybe not bubbles, but a few eras like that. But you're right. There are a number of businesses, they got well funded, but they were just a little too early. We weren't quite ready to embrace the technology or the solution. So, but that's great. So one thing I want to chat with you about, and a couple of years ago, you were actually gracious enough to invite me to one of your retreats. But, how you engage with the CFOs at your portfolio companies. And when I was there, and, I was a CFO, but it became very aware, these are some of the best CFOs in the game, right? At your portfolio company. So I'm curious how you build relationships with them and what that relationship is like.
Yeah, so we have built, as I said, invested in about 470 companies, and some of them have turned out to be great investments like Uber, DoorDash, Guardant Health. Of course, not all investments have worked out. Some haven't. It's the nature of investing. But one of the things I try to focus on is supporting our portfolio companies and working with portfolio company founders and CFOs, especially as they get close to going public. And there are a couple of things there that I think are really important. One is, having the right processes and controls in place, the Sarbanes-Oxley controls, to ensure that, you don't end up going public and a quarter or two later, you're doing a material, you have the material deficiency and doing a restatement or anything like that. That's like the basics, the foundation. The other is, trying to help them build the ability to forecast. Like when a company goes public, you start having to give guidance, forward guidance. What will next quarter's revenue, profitability look like? And, the mantra that we'd like to use is you always want to beat and raise. And, I did that, in one of my earlier roles, helping a company beat and raise for 6 quarters in a row. So we want all of our companies to be able to do that. But in order to do that, you have to be able to have visibility into your pipeline, visibility into the demand, the supply, cost management, all of those types of things. And then, of course, it's the selection of the bankers. We at SoftBank, we do, just given the nature of our business, we do a lot of business with the banks, have deep relationships. And to the extent our portfolio company can leverage those relationships and make sure they have the best book runners that are going to take them public would help them. So those are some of the things we do. And, you referenced, Jack, the event in 2021, and I think we did a similar event in 2019. We call it FinConnect, where we invite the CFOs of all of our portfolio companies for a gathering to share best practices with them.
Yeah, that was an amazing event. I mean, I organize financial conferences for a living, and that was like as good as, and I go to other people's financial conferences all the time. That was as good as anything I've ever been to. And it's not even a full-time job. So, but I'm still so.
You're being modest. I've come to your conferences too, Jack. Those are really good.
Yeah, we have our moments. So, but one thing you did that struck me, you had it was like fox hunting or falconry is the activity. I'm like, boy, I'm in a different world than I'm used to. If it was falconry, right? So it's one of the things I had to look it up. I'm like, what is falconry exactly? So, but cool. But one thing I want to chat with you about, you mentioned earlier Masa, and I think words like icon and legend are maybe tossed around too often, but not in his case. I mean, there's very few people within our lifetime who've had the impact that Masa has. And forgive me for referring to his first name as if I know.
No, please.
But I'm curious, what that relationship is like, and you must learn from him from every single conversation, I have to think.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. He's an inspiration. I think there are a couple of qualities about him. And, that was one of the reasons that attracted me to SoftBank. But I still remember in the early days in 2017, when we were investing in rideshare companies like Uber, Didi, Grab, Ola, etc. He has this remarkable ability, as a visionary to think out of the box. And, like the founders would come and talk to us about what the addressable market is for ridesharing. And, he starts brainstorming with them, and suddenly he's talking about, not just ride sharing, but food delivery as well. And, you fast forward to today, Uber does both ride sharing and it has Uber Eats. So his ability to really, think out of the box and, be very creative is always inspiring. Then the other thing that I really admire about him is he doesn't cry over spilt milk. We make mistakes, learn from them, and move on. You'll recall that, prior to in the dot-com days, he was one of the richest men in the world, and he lost quite a bit with the collapse of dot-com, and, he's bounced back, since then. And that's a quality that I think is just an amazing quality, to be able to, take the learnings and move on. The other thing, and this is where he and I are very different, he's a risk taker. And by definition, a lot of founders, entrepreneurs, and investors are risk takers. I, probably like you, Jack, in the CFO profession, I'm all about mitigating risk. And Masa teases me quite a bit. He says, you're too conservative. So, but I think, you were asking me about the investment committee earlier. I think part of the reason he's put me on the investment committee is that he wants that balance and he wants that financial discipline. And so I think while he teases me, I think he does appreciate that level of financial discipline.
Oh, sure. If you were exactly like him, why would he need you, right? So, so you can say yes and make him feel better about decisions he's already made. So you need to be challenged, even a man as brilliant as him, I suppose. So, but I wanted to ask a little about your team, and you'll probably remember this, but maybe not. But you did me a huge solid in 2021 when I was selling what was the CFO Leadership Council. At the time, I was the owner. And so, I got some queries about it, and there's not exactly like a lot of publicly available information for selling professional associations. So I asked you, I just said, is there somewhere I can look? Is this information available? And I'm just not having luck finding it. And, my request wasn't any more than that, really. I was thinking you just point me to 2 or 3 sources that I just wasn't finding. And next thing I know, I've got your team helping him out with valuation metrics and analyzing my business for me. And, I realized, first of all, how, the reverence that they've developed for you over the years, but just how good they are and what great problem solvers they are. And, so I'm just curious, Navneet, sort of what's your, is there principles you adhere in developing a team? And, how'd you get them that way? Because they're so talented and they've been with you for a while. They have a lot of options to go to other places, I would assume.
Well, first, you're being too kind. So thank you for, I'll pass on your remarks to the team. They'll appreciate it. It's a couple of things. We're in the business of valuing companies, valuing investment opportunities. So it was almost natural to help you. And, for our team, it's an opportunity to work with you, to do something different. It's different than a tech business, that sells widgets, to be valuing this. It's a new challenge for them. But to your other question about teams and building teams, I like to use this tagline. It's not my tagline. I borrowed it. It's empower, engage, and excel. And the concept is with the teams, with the employees, to really empower them so they feel valued, they feel challenged, and they feel supported. And so I think these types of things helps them feel empowered. The second concept is engagement, and this is like working with my peers and others. So we have mutually beneficial relationships. So, whether it's my peers, my manager, the board, etc., it's really trying to understand what their needs are. How can I support them in being successful at what they're doing? But at the same time, have transparent communication. So that builds trust. And then the last one is excel, which I think is pretty obvious, which is we should all excel at whatever we're doing. So in my case, I want to make sure my finance function is best in class. So I think following those principles of empower, engage, and excel kind of helps in building teams and retaining talent as well.
No, I hadn't heard that, but I'm going to start stealing that from you without any attribution whatsoever. So that's a great way to look at it. And, people talk about the high performing culture, and it seems like you've created this, right? For sure.
I don't know how much of that is. I mean, I'm part of it. We've been lucky. We've been lucky to hire some tremendous talent. The other thing, I think that helps in building a high performance culture is this concept of intrapreneurship. So as you know, we work at SoftBank with entrepreneurs. But the concept is, what if you let the employees, be entrepreneurs? And the idea is that they should feel empowered to be innovators in their own jobs and their own roles. So they can bring about innovation and they have the autonomy and the freedom. So they feel like, you don't have to be, start a company to be an entrepreneur. The idea is you can be an entrepreneur in any job that you have. And I think that contributes to building a high performance culture as well.
No, you built a great team. And I apologize. I'm actually legally required as a podcast to ask you this question, but how do you use generative AI and other technologies in your business? And I do ask that of all my guests, but you work for SoftBank, so you probably certainly know it as well as anyone I'll ever meet.
Yes. In fact, we're big users of ChatGPT. It's, as you know, the parent company is OpenAI, and we have a close partnership with Sam Altman and OpenAI. So all of our functions, legal, finance, HR, leverage chat. It's a phenomenal tool. It has truly increased our efficiency. But more broadly, to your question about technology, they say that necessity is the mother of innovation. And in our case, with 470 portfolio companies, and these companies are sending us quarterly data, actual performance for the quarter and, future projections, it became imperative for our teams to take all of that data. And, some of this data is in spreadsheets, some of it is in PowerPoint, some of it is, PDF documents. So we built a number of tools, and some of it was we leveraged existing tools. Some of it is in-house tools that we built and the data science around it. So we could take all of that data and come up with a number of heuristics. So our investing teams could use that. Companies that have been successful, like DoorDash and others, what is it that they're doing right? What is their customer acquisition cost? What's their return? What's their retention rates? Things like that. Companies that didn't do so well, what went wrong? Where did they make mistakes? Or, what are some of the red flags when you look at a company? So we used a lot of that. So it was really necessary for us in terms of, making better investment decisions, but then also to help our portfolio companies, as I said, as they prepare to go public or to list, hey, this is what you need to do to be successful and to be well received by institutional investors in the capital markets. So for us, it was really necessary to leverage these tools.
No, that it makes sense. And yeah, you must have such incredible in-house expertise on that to begin with. I'm just not using it to its potential. Well, for one thing, our accounting is, pretty simple. We run on QuickBooks, but occasionally I'll say one thing that was funny. I was speaking at a conference and I decided the topic was ChatGPT specifically. And I decided to have ChatGPT write my bio. And I'm like, oh, this will be interesting. And, the professional stuff, it was accurate. And then I asked, can you put a couple of things about my, personal stuff? And it said two things that I found. One, I don't know how it knew this to be the case, but it said he's from the Boston area, but he often lies and says he's from New Hampshire because people are nicer to him. Which is absolutely true. But how did ChatGPT know that about me? It also knew that I was diabetic. I'm like, it's like, wow, and I must have, it probably surmised the diabetes thing because I'm always asking about, is this healthy for diabetics and stuff? But I was a little freaked out that it knows that I sometimes tell people that I'm from New Hampshire. Just, if I go to a sports crazy city and I say I'm from Boston, they pick a fight with me. Oh, the Patriots cheap. The Red Sox are over. Leave me alone. I'm from New Hampshire. So, but anyway, that's great. I want to ask you a little bit. And again, you're being a CFO and just observing some of the best in the game. How do you see the very nature of being a CFO or financial leadership changing?
Yeah. So, if I look back, and, probably you'll agree with me, Jack, over the last several decades, the role of the CFO has changed, right? There's a period of time, when we had the Enron scandal and all of that issues, and, the CFO role pivoted to being more accounting heavy, more Sarbanes-Oxley driven. And then, there are different periods of time, when there's more growth and all, it kind of pivots to people with a forecasting or investment banking or M&A type of experience. So it's hard to tell what will happen over the next 10, 20 years. And now, as you said, with not just generative AI, but AI in general, we're going to be leveraging tools. And, a lot of these C-suite roles become a little blurry. And I think it is perfectly reasonable for a CFO to be, head of some other functional area and vice versa. But I think there are three common things. My advice would be that people should focus on number one, whatever their functional area is, to be the expert at that and making sure they're building a best-in-class function. The second is really understanding who the key stakeholders are and understanding their needs, helping them be successful and partnering with them, collaborating with them, building trusting relationships with them. That's super important. And the final thing is to be able to have a strong team, because a CFO is only as good as her team is. So if the team is strong, then, they do well and project well, both inside and outside the organization. So the ability to hire and retain the top talent is super important.
No, that makes sense. And I just, as a outspoken feminist, I love the fact that you refer to the CFO as a she. So,
Jack, I have two daughters, two wonderful daughters, beautiful daughters. And, so I hope they will have the opportunities. And, now they're both in college. I hope that, when they're in the working environments, they will do well and they'll have equal opportunities. So I've tried very hard. In fact, here at SoftBank, in my leadership team, there are a lot more women than there are men. So I'm very proud of that.
Well, good for you. And I have publicly predicted that within 10 years, there will be more female CFOs than male CFOs. And it's, largely demographic and the way that the world is changing a little bit. So, but no, that's great. And I'm sure your daughters will have very exciting and rewarding careers. So, but I'd like to ask you a little bit, you have a lot going on right now with, your CFO of one of the biggest funds in history. You're on the investing committee. And I believe you're on at least one board of directors outside of that. And I could perhaps be more. But, plus you've got the two daughters and you work with all of the portfolio company CFOs. So how do you do it? That's got to be a lot of hours. And I know you're very family oriented. How do you sort of achieve that work-life balance thing?
Yeah. So, it has changed over the years. So I think in the early days of my career, when I was single and, just out of college, trying to prove myself and gain credibility, it was all work, work, work. And then, life events happen, you get married, have children. And for me, it was super important to go to my daughter's school events, their performances, tournaments, and things like that. I didn't want to miss them. And I'm glad I went. I have memories of those. So that was wonderful. And then, as you know, over time, and we all went through COVID. So prior to COVID, people used to come to work 5 days a week. And then, post COVID, it became really hard to get people to even show up 1 day a week. And, we here at SoftBank, we encourage our employees to come to the office 3 days a week. So now what we've done is we've said, hey, look, work and life, they're so intermingled and interrelated. It's totally fine to, do your doctor's appointments or haircuts during the week, because a lot of us naturally, and now, it's not just that, like for us as a global company, like Masa is in Tokyo, our investing team, some are in London, some are in India, some are in Latin America. We're having calls at all times of the day. So you'll have people, go to a doctor's appointment during the day, and then in the evening after dinner, they're checking emails. So I think a lot of it is just trying to integrate work and life and finding the right balance.
Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, we work from home was perhaps the biggest game changer we're going to go through. I've 3 or 4 times in my life, I felt something that I did was the biggest game changer that I ever experienced, but I keep getting proven wrong. So, but that's great what you've been able to achieve. And I'm always trying to change the perception of CFOs. And I ask them their favorite joke or interesting hobbies or a fun fact. And I wonder if you have a fun fact that you'd be willing to share with our listeners.
I think, Jack, I think I'm really good at mimicking accents. So as you know, I grew up in Zambia. I come from Indian heritage, now work, for a Japanese company. So, as I travel around the world, spend time there, I think I'm able to pick up the accent and I can mimic it. And before you put me on the spot, I'm not going to mimic an accent now, but the next time you and I have dinner together, I'll give it a shot and then you tell me how good I am at it. How's
Okay.
that?
That sounds good. I was hoping you'd mimic a Boston accent because I always get teased for mine. But next time we get together, I'm going to hold you to that. So, well, this was a great conversation. And listeners know I typically ask the guests for their advice for the next generation of CFOs, but I actually think they could listen to the entire episode and get that. You've already given some great advice for them along the way. So for now, I just want to thank you for your time. I know you've got a lot going on. You've always been very generous with your time towards me. And I want to give you the final word.
Thank you, Jack. Really enjoyed being on your podcast. Thanks for having me. And, I've known you for quite some time, and I want to take this opportunity to let your listeners know how much we all appreciate you. You have done so much for, the finance community, aspiring CFOs themselves, the conferences that you organize, the various events and forums that you have. And now you've started this podcast, which I think is just amazing. What you have done for the finance community and professionals in general is incredible. You're a great human being. I've known you. I know your personal background, your family situation and all. You're an inspiring leader, and I'm proud to call you my friend, Jack. So thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Thanks again to Payhawk and Planful for their support of the Secrets of Rockstar CFOs. Rock on!
Thank you for listening to this episode. To continue your exploration of this role that focuses on strategy, leadership, finance, and technology, listen to more episodes of the show at rockstarcfos.com. Join this revolution, episode by episode. Push yourself to achieve great things and unlock the best opportunities available to you. CFOs are creating a legacy, and it's time for you to leave your own unique imprint on the world today. That's all for now. See you on the next one.